Hello everyone, nice to see you again in today's story. On the Boring Channel, I introduce to you an ancient story that science cannot explain. Now I invite you to listen to this story. The burden of the gods was too heavy, and the work was unbearably hard. Let humanity bear the burden of the gods. Atrahasis, Mesopotamia. What if the old gods were more than just myths? Is it time to rewrite human history? References to the Anunnaki come from cuneiform tablets that recount Sumerian myths. They are depicted as gods who shaped the world and oversaw the earth. In the Epic of Atrahasis, a Babylonian epic poem, the higher gods determine destiny. Meanwhile, the Igigi, the lesser gods, undertake the physical toil. The Anunnaki are also mentioned in the Enuma Elish, a Babylonian poem describing the creation of the universe. They also appear in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest known epic work, or in the Sumerian myth of Ishtar's descent into the underworld, the Sumerian king list, and other myths, texts, and inscriptions. Did these writings refer to the Anunnaki as beings who came from other worlds? Could there be a relationship between the gods and entities of ancient Mesopotamia and those of other ancestral cultures? Is there archaeological evidence of the arrival of extraterrestrial beings on Earth? Or are they symbolic representations, mythical, or supernatural beings, as traditional views assert? What follows are highly controversial proposals. They propose a view that differs significantly from the official historical narratives. We offer this as an intellectual exploration aimed at keeping the mind open to new ideas. What you choose to accept or reject is up to you. You must draw your own conclusions. As the philosopher Aristotle once said, it is the mark of an educated mind to accept an idea without accepting it. The Nibiru catastrophe and the arrival of the term Anunnaki originate from Sumerian mythology, an ancient civilization that flourished in Mesopotamia, present-day Iraq, approximately 4,500 years ago. The origin of a word Anunnaki stems from the Sumerian word Anunna, meaning descendants of An. An is the Sumerian sky god and is considered the father of the gods. The word Ki generally translates as earth, highlighting the heavenly connection to the world. According to author Zacharias Sitchin's interpretations of ancient Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki extraterrestrial beings resided on a planet called Nibiru. They faced a severe crisis due to severe environmental degradation. Nibiru was suffering from a catastrophic climate disaster, with its atmosphere deteriorating at an alarming rate. The only solution the Anunnaki considered possible was to find a substance capable of restoring the atmosphere. They discovered that gold, when dispersed into tiny particles within the atmosphere, could reflect and scatter solar radiation, acting as a protective shield. Desperate to save their planet, the Anunnaki began exploring other celestial bodies in search of this precious metal. They arrived on Earth aboard spacecraft capable of long interplanetary journeys. These ships used anti-gravity propulsion, enabling them to traverse the vast distances between Nibiru and Earth. Initially, their arrival sparked fear in Mesopotamia, a region that later became the cradle of some of the earliest human civilizations. The Anunnaki arrived 450,000 years ago, at a time when Earth was inhabited by various human species, such as Homo habilis and Homo erectus. The poem Atrahasis describes how the Igigi, minor gods, were the first to work in the mines. When the gods toiled, the burden was too great and the work too onerous. Exhausted by the harsh conditions and excessive workload, the Igigi revolted against the Anunnaki. They could no longer endure the physical toil. They destroyed their tools and besieged the house of Enlil, one of the most important Anunnaki gods, demanding an end to their suffering. In response to this rebellion, the Anunnaki decided to create humanity to take over the heavy work from the Igigi. Humans were formed by combining clay with the blood of a sacrificial god, giving them a divine essence. Humanity's purpose was to carry out the work, allowing the Igigi and the Anunnaki to rest. This is how the Anunnaki created humanity, according to the poem Atrahasis from Mesopotamian mythology. Genetic engineering of primate ancestors. According to Zacharias Sitchin's recent hypothesis, the Anunnaki did not create humans from clay, but instead used advanced technology. They selected a species of primitive human that already inhabited Earth. This may have been Homo erectus, whose DNA was altered to create a new species, Homo sapiens. Sitchin suggested that this genetic modification could explain humans' superior intellectual and social abilities compared to other species. The first human created by the Anunnaki was named Adamu. He was the first being with enhanced biology and higher intelligence, making him suitable for the tasks required by the Anunnaki. The name Adamu is related to the word Adama, which means earth or clay in Hebrew. Similarly, in the biblical account of Genesis, it is described how God created Adam from the dust of the ground, and the Lord God formed man from the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. God did not create Adam to work, but to be the first inhabitant of the Garden of Eden. In the Bible, the tree of knowledge symbolizes forbidden wisdom. By eating its fruit, Adam and Eve gained the knowledge of good and evil, which leads to their expulsion. Their banishment from Eden also prevented them from eating from the tree of life and living forever. Sitchin, on the other hand, interpreted Eden as the site where the Anunnaki established a base of operations located in what is now Mesopotamia. The Sumerian Eden may have been a kind of laboratory where the first humans were created and genetically modified. Enki, the leader of the Anunnaki, supported granting knowledge to humans, while his brother Enlil opposed it, fearing they would become too powerful. Once the first humans were created, they were allowed to multiply and form a large workforce. Thus, humanity took over mining and other tasks previously performed by minor gods. The Anunnaki organization. The Anunnaki had a highly hierarchical society. They were led by a king and other members of the royal family who made decisions regarding their civilization. In Sitchin's accounts, Anu was the king of the Anunnaki that asked the supreme king. He had the final say on political and scientific matters. The family drama among Anu's descendants, particularly between Enki and Enlil, affected both the Anunnaki and humanity. Enki, known as the god of wisdom, was the genetic engineer behind the creation of man. Enlil, on the other hand, took a leadership role, overseeing the implementation of the Anunnaki laws. Beyond resource extraction, the Anunnaki shared knowledge with humanity in fields such as astronomy, mathematics, architecture, and agriculture. According to Sitchin, their advanced technology and remarkable longevity led humanity to venerate them as gods. Physical appearance. The Anunnaki are described as gigantic beings compared to humans, with an estimated height of 10 to 16 feet or 3 to 5 meters. Their enormous stature gave them an imposing presence, which likely contributed to their perception as gods. They are believed to have large, elongated skulls. Their eyes are often depicted as piercing, giving them an air of wisdom. In some accounts, they are described as having golden or bronze skin, linked to their supposed divine or extraterrestrial origins. They are frequently depicted wearing elaborate clothing made of materials unfamiliar to humans of the era. They are often depicted as armor or robes that appear to have technological capabilities, such as energy manipulation. While their form was humanoid, they are also described with features that suggest an extraterrestrial nature. The wings seen on some Mesopotamian carvings gave them a divine aura, suggesting they could move between dimensions or planets. Some speculate that the Anunnaki used advanced technology to simulate abilities such as flight, telepathy, and time manipulation. For thousands of years, the Anunnaki worked alongside humans, sowing the seeds of knowledge and civilization. However, as with all cycles, their time on Earth came to an end. The situation on Nibiru began to stabilize, reducing the urgent need to extract gold. Internal conflicts and challenges to the authority of the Anunnaki leaders created an atmosphere of discord. Tensions, exacerbated by the rivalry between Enki and Enlil, eventually reached a breaking point. The ships that had flown over Earth began to gradually depart, marking a slow departure. The great gods, who had walked among humans and were worshipped as gods, began to withdraw. Anunnaki technology became scattered, and their teachings were transformed into the myths and legends we know today. Transfer of power, according to Sitchin's hypothesis, When the Anunnaki left Earth, they did not completely relinquish control of human affairs. Instead of ruling directly, they appointed human kings to be representatives of their divine authority. The Sumerian tablets, interpreted through the Anunnaki lens, reveals how power was granted to individuals who became the first human kings. These rulers were chosen to rule in the name of the gods. Their role was to follow the will of the Anunnaki, maintain order, and ensure that divine laws were enforced on Earth. In some cases, the kings were said to be direct descendants of the Anunnaki, born from the union of gods and humans. The concept of divine blood persisted throughout ancient civilizations, where kings were often viewed as demigods. The king list, the Great Flood, and humanity's restart. The Sumerian king list, inscribed on clay tablets in cuneiform script, has been discovered at various archaeological sites in ancient Mesopotamia. It details the succession of Sumerian kings, ranging from supposedly legendary to historical times. The list indicates that some kings ruled for unusually long periods, sometimes thousands of years, before a catastrophic event occurred. Alulum was identified as the first human king, ruling after the kingship descended from heaven. According to the Anunnaki hypothesis of extraterrestrial beings, this event marked the moment when they transferred power to humans to take over. The king list states that Alulum ruled Sumer for an astonishing 28,800 years. His successor, Ulgar, ruled the same city for 26,000 years, while in Minuanabad Dabira ruled for 43,200 years. The reigns of the early pre-flood kings spanned thousands of years and were unusually long. Some scholars suggest that these rulers were Anunnaki or extraterrestrial humanoid hybrids, which could explain their longevity. Coming from a planet with a different time cycle, the Anunnaki would have a much longer lifespan than humans. In his interpretation of the Sumerian texts, Sitchin suggests that the Anunnaki grew tired of humanity due to their growing numbers and disobedience. As a solution, they decided to unleash a flood to wipe out humanity. However, the god Enki opposed this decision and chose to save one human by instructing him to build an ark for survival. Ziusadra is the first known hero in the Mesopotamian flood story. Enki warns Ziusadra of the god's plan to send a flood to destroy humanity and provides him with instructions for building a ship. The Ziusadra myth inspired the Epic of Gilgamesh, in which Utnapishtim recounts to Gilgamesh how he survived the Great Flood. Following divine commands, Utnapishtim built an ark and brought with him his family and animals of every kind. When the flood began, the waters submerged the earth for 7 days and nights, destroying everything in their path. The waters rose so high that even the gods were terrified and fled to the heavens, frightened by the magnitude of the storm they had unleashed. When the floodwaters began to recede, Utnapishtim released a dove and a swallow, and both returned. Later, he sent a raven, but it did not return, indicating that he had found land. The biblical account of the flood appears in Genesis, chapters 6 to 9. When God saw the evil that swept over the earth, he decided to destroy humanity with a great flood, sparing only Noah and his people, the family that lived according to his commandments. He instructed Noah to build the ark, specifying its detailed dimensions. Unlike Utnapishtim, Noah endured a longer flood. It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Noah released a raven, but it did not return. Then he sent a dove, which returned with an olive branch, signifying the receding of the waters. After the flood, Sitchin recounted, the earth was left in ruins, prompting the Anunnaki to reconsider their actions. They chose not to completely exterminate humanity, instead teaching the survivors how to rebuild civilization. The Anunnaki also decided to limit the human lifespan, altering their DNA once again to reduce longevity and prevent overpopulation. In addition, humans lost some of the advanced physical and cognitive abilities initially bestowed upon them by the Anunnaki. In this way, humans after the flood would be easier to control and less likely to challenge authority. The flood marked a clear divide between the long reigns of the early kings and the shorter ones that followed. Among the post-flood rulers were Embegizi, king of Kish, who ruled for 900 years, and Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, whose reign lasted 126 years. Similarly, in the Bible, pre-flood patriarchs such as Methuselah and Noah lived for several centuries, while later generations had much shorter lifespans. According to the Anunnaki extraterrestrial hypothesis, Mesopotamian flood accounts reflect the Anunnaki leaders' intention to wipe out humanity. However, conventional interpretations by archaeologists and scholars suggest that the flood stories are based on widespread floods or sudden climate changes. Gilgamesh, Anunnaki lineage? Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, is the central figure in one of humanity's oldest epic poems, the Epic of Gilgamesh. He is portrayed as an extraordinary being, part divine and part human, of immense stature and superhuman power. In the epic, his mother is the goddess Nin's son, associated with fertility and dreams. According to Anunnaki theories, this divine lineage indicates that his mother was an Anunnaki, while his other father was human. Gilgamesh's towering height, as depicted in the inscriptions, is attributed to his Anunnaki origin. One of Gilgamesh's main motivations in the poem is his quest for immortality. Although he is a powerful king with divine qualities, he must confront his partial humanity, which renders him mortal. During his journey, he meets Utnapishtim, a survivor of the flood in the Babylonian version of the story. Utnapishtim tells him that immortality is not a gift bestowed upon everyone, but reveals the existence of a plant at the bottom of the sea that restores youth. Gilgamesh retrieves the plant, but a serpent steals it, leading him to realize that true immortality lies in the legacy one leaves behind. The Anunnaki's colossal structures, according to the Anunnaki theory of extraterrestrials, these beings arrived on Earth approximately 450,000 years ago. They remained on the planet until the Great Flood, which is believed to have occurred about 12,000 years ago, representing a survival period of approximately 438,000 years. It is speculated that advanced technology enabled them to build megalithic structures such as the pyramids. These monuments are believed to be part of a global system that included other structures in various regions of the world. Sitchin suggested that the pyramids served purposes beyond being tombs or monuments. He suggested they were used for scientific and technological purposes, such as navigational markers or energy management centers. Some argue that the Anunnaki either oversaw or supervised their construction, given the remarkable precision and advanced knowledge required. One theory about the pyramids of Giza posits that they are aligned with the constellation Orion. In the case of the Great Pyramid, archaeological studies have shown that its faces align precisely with the cardinal directions: north, south, east, and west. One argument in favor of the Anunnaki hypothesis is the enormous difficulty of constructing the Great Pyramid using the primitive technology of the era. Archaeologists estimate that the Great Pyramid was built over approximately 20 years during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. It consists of approximately 2 million blocks, ranging from small limestone blocks to the massive granite stones used in the interior chambers. The average weight of the blocks is 2.5 tons, while the granite blocks in the king's chamber weigh up to 70 tons. To complete the pyramid in 20 years, it is estimated that approximately 800 blocks would have been placed every day. This meant that Egyptian workers would have needed to move and place many blocks daily, requiring enormous logistics and coordination. According to modern alternative theories, the Anunnaki may have used anti-gravity technology or a form of free energy to move and place the blocks. Adding to the mystique linking the Anunnaki to the pyramids is the presence of the Great Sphinx of Giza, located in front of the pyramids. The Sphinx has puzzled archaeologists due to its age and the lack of clear records regarding its construction. Traditional theories suggest it was built around 4,500 years ago, during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu. However, some theorists believe it was erected much earlier by the Anunnaki or under their supervision, representing the guardian of the secrets of this extraterrestrial civilization. Ancient monuments can also be found on other continents. The Great Pyramid of Cholula, the largest pyramid by volume in the world, is another frequently mentioned structure. Its size and complexity are said to indicate knowledge beyond that possessed by local cultures at the time. Meanwhile, the city of Teotihuacan, near Mexico City, was designed with precise astronomical alignment. The Avenue of the Dead, the city's central axis, appears to align with the movement of the sun on specific days of the year. In addition, the sun and moon pyramids have direct connections to the solar calendar and astronomical alignments. The people of Teotihuacan had a profound influence on surrounding cultures. Although the Aztecs flourished centuries later, they held Teotihuacan in deep reverence. They believed it was the place where the gods created the sun and moon, referring to it as the city of the gods. Are there connections between the Anunnaki and other ancient civilizations? Mesopotamian narratives, such as the poem Atrahasis, describe how the Anunnaki created humans to serve them. In Egyptian tradition, the god Khnum, the divine potter, shaped humans from clay, shaping them from the clay of life. The Egyptians believed that pharaohs, considered direct descendants of the gods, serve as intermediaries between humans and the gods. This concept of divine kingship is also found in Mesopotamia, where rulers ruled on behalf of the Anunnaki. The belief in a divine connection between rulers and gods may stem from shared myth or from direct Sumerian influence on the Egyptians. Another link between the Anunnaki and the Egyptian pantheon lies in the similarities between some of their deities. Anu is the sky god and father of the gods in Sumerian mythology. He has a counterpart in Ra, the Egyptian sun god and creator of all gods. Enlil, the god of air, wind, and storms, find his Egyptian counterpart in Shu, the god of the air that separates heaven from earth. Set, who shares attributes related to weather and natural forces, is another possible counterpart. Enki, the Sumerian god of water, wisdom, creativity, and magic, can be compared to Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, writing, and magic. Ta, the Egyptian creator god and patron of craftsmen, can also be considered equivalent to Enki due to his role in creation and craftsmanship. Similarly, depictions of deities with hybrid or animal-like features are found in both cultures. The Egyptians depicted deities with animal heads, such as Horus and Anubis. The Anunnaki, on the other hand, were depicted as humanoid beings with awe-inspiring features and symbols of divine power. Egyptian pharaohs, such as Ramses II, were often depicted as colossal, almost superhuman figures. Some proponents of the Anunnaki theory argue that these pharaohs may have had genetic connections to the gods. Additionally, both the Sumerians and Egyptians possessed a remarkable knowledge of astronomy. The Sumerians developed star charts and calendars based on the movements of celestial bodies, enabling them to predict astronomical events. They developed a sexagesimal numeral system, which forms the basis for how we measure time today. The Egyptians recognized constellations such as Orion, pioneered the 365-day calendar, and made advances in arithmetic, geometry, and medicine. This fascination with the sky and celestial bodies is linked to the belief that the gods originated from the stars. The pursuit of immortality is another common theme between Sumerian and Egyptian cultures. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the king longs for eternal life, while Egyptian pharaohs built elaborate tombs to secure their place in the afterlife. For the Egyptians, the afterlife was as important as earthly existence, and preparing for it was central to their religious beliefs. On the other hand, in the ancient cultures of the Americas, additional similarities can be drawn. Anu can be compared to the Mayan god Itzamna or the Aztec god Ometeotl, both of which are considered celestial creator deities of the universe. Enlil may be related to the Mayan god Huracan or the Aztec god Tlaloc, both of which are associated with weather and storms. Enki corresponds to Quetzalcoatl, a deity worshipped by the Olmec, Maya, and Aztecs, who is associated with wind, wisdom, knowledge, creation, and sometimes the planet Venus. At La Venta, an Olmec site and one of the oldest cultures in the Americas, there is an early depiction of Quetzalcoatl holding a cube in his right hand. Interestingly, this resembles the cubes in the left hands of winged genies in Mesopotamian art. The Nephilim, the Book of Enoch, and the Anunnaki, connection or coincidence? The Book of Enoch is an ancient text excluded from most biblical canons, with the exception of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. It describes visions and apocalyptic accounts of fallen angels and giants. The text recounts the stories of Enoch, the biblical patriarch, who was taken up into heaven, where he received visions of the universe, the celestial order, and the destiny of humanity. Some theories interpret these experiences as encounters with the Anunnaki, suggesting that these beings took Enoch with them. Did the Anunnaki transport Enoch on a spaceship to a distant planet, revealing to him different parts of the universe? The Book of Enoch also mentions the Watchers, celestial beings who took human wives and produced a race of giants called the Nephilim. Because of this act, the Watchers are considered fallen angels, pursued by the faithful angels loyal to God. These fallen angels shared advanced knowledge, skills, and technologies with humans. Their offspring, the Nephilim, are described as enormous and possessing extraordinary strength. This physical aspect gave them an aura of dominance over humans, much like the Anunnaki. However, the tyrants became so destructive and dangerous that their existence was deemed unbearable, necessitating their elimination to restore order. To cleanse the earth of the evil and corruption brought by the fallen angels and tyrants, God decided to send a great flood. As physical beings, the tyrants perished along with other corrupted humans who were not aboard Noah's Arkansas. This narrative parallels the story of the Anunnaki flood in the poem Atrahasis and other flood myths, where the Hebrews exposed to Mesopotamian tales and incorporated them into their culture and eventually the Bible. Was there a catastrophic flood in this region that inspired the flood narratives? Could the Nephilim be the equivalent of the Anunnaki and human offspring? The Mysteries of Human DNA in 1973, Francis Crick, along with biochemist Leslie Orgel, proposed the theory of directed panspermia. They developed this idea because they were amazed by the complexity and precision of the genetic code. Given the conditions on early Earth, they concluded that life was unlikely to arise spontaneously from inorganic molecules. They noted that the genetic code is nearly universal across all living organisms, suggesting a possible common origin. This uniformity led them to consider the theory of directed panspermia, the idea that an extraterrestrial civilization sent microorganisms to Earth to sprout life. Moreover, the complexity of the genetic code may be evidence of intelligent design rather than the result of random processes. Crick and Orgel did not claim this theory to be true, but rather presented it as a hypothesis to address challenges to theories about the origin of life. Could the idea of directed panspermia be related to the Anunnaki hypothesis of extraterrestrial origins? Paleoanthropology dates the emergence of Homo sapiens to approximately 300,000 years ago, during the Pleistocene epoch. For tens of thousands of years, humans behaved similarly to great apes. But between 50,000 and 100,000 years ago, humanity experienced a major leap in mental capabilities, technology, and culture, known as the cognitive revolution or the Great Leap Forward. There is no definitive explanation for this, but it may have been driven by genetic mutations, social adaptation, or environmental factors. Proponents of the Anunnaki extraterrestrial hypothesis argue that these extraterrestrial beings facilitated the sudden evolution of humanity. According to this theory, the Anunnaki combined their DNA with human DNA, thus creating the first humans. This intervention allegedly gave humanity enhanced brain development, along with the ability to use tools and form complex societies. The Anunnaki proposal and its claim to influence human DNA lack support from current genetic science. However, some curiosity in human biology has led some researchers to wonder if there is more to our evolutionary story. Human chromosome 2 has been the subject of considerable interest in genetic research. At some point in our evolutionary history, two ancestral chromosomes fused to form chromosome 2, a feature absent in other primates. Chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans have 24 pairs of chromosomes, while humans have 23. Some theorists suggest that this chromosome fusion was a deliberate act by the Anunnaki to accelerate human evolution. On the other hand, approximately 98% of human DNA does not code for proteins, meaning its precise purpose remains unclear. Research suggests it may have regulatory or structural roles, although its full function is still under debate, fueling speculation. Some theorists suggest this DNA contains hidden traces of genetic manipulation by the Anunnaki. Perhaps these beings left marks within our DNA that, if decoded, could reveal details about our extraterrestrial origins. Anunnaki traces on Earth. In Canyonlands National Park, Utah, strange figures created by the Fremont and Anasazi people have been discovered. They are believed to represent ceremonial or spiritual guides, although their exact meaning remains unknown. Particularly striking are the anthropomorphic figures in Segu Canyon, with hollow eyes and elongated bodies. The prevailing view is that they depict visions of shamans or supernatural beings. In 1927, local archaeologists discovered these lines while exploring this area in southern Peru. According to official archaeology, they were created by the Nazca, an ancient Peruvian culture. However, proponents of ancient astronaut theories say they were created as signals to visitors from other worlds. They claim that these giant shapes and lines served as landing strips or reference points for spacecraft. Among the most mysterious figures is the one known as the astronaut. It resembles the Palpa geoglyphs, first observed in 1926. According to studies, some are attributed to the Nazca, but most were created by the Paracas and Top-era cultures. Some resemble small figures or mythical creatures, while others appear to be wearing something resembling a double-extended helmet. These figurines, discovered in the ancient city of Ur in Mesopotamia, belong to the Ubaid culture, considered a direct precursor to Sumerian civilization. They depict human figures with elongated faces, large eyes, and pointed heads. Often depicted in positions of power or seated on thrones, they likely serve a ritual or religious purpose. From an archaeological perspective, they are viewed as symbols of beings associated with early cults, while modern authors suggest a connection to the Anunnaki. In northwest Australia, the Wandjina region, the figures are prominent in Aboriginal culture. They are considered ancestral spiritual beings who descended from the heavens to create the earth. They are depicted with large heads, protruding eyes, invisible mouths, and halos around their heads. Considered to bringers of supernatural knowledge and power, the Wandjina are believed to control rain and storms. Located in the Sahara Desert, Tassili Najar contains a collection of rock art dating back nearly 10,000 years. The artwork includes stylized human figures with large heads and elongated head elements. Some theorists describe these images as possible aliens or ancient deities, although archaeologists largely agree that they represent hunting rituals. In the Valcamonica caves, human figures appear wearing what look like round helmets or headdresses, with rays emanating from their heads. Some have interpreted these figures as beings in spacesuits, but the general consensus identifies them as warriors or shamans. Vimanas are flying vehicles mentioned in ancient Indian texts. They are described as devices used by gods and celestial beings to traverse the earth and sky. According to these accounts, the Vimana was capable of performing amazing maneuvers and flying at great speeds. Modern interpretations compare it to highly advanced spacecraft or aircraft. In some stories, the Vimana is said to have been equipped with powerful weapons capable of emitting rays or producing fire. Do all these figures and prehistoric artifacts point to the ancient presence of extraterrestrials or the Anunnaki? There is no evidence to support this, and archaeology rejects such claims, but everyone is free to form their own opinions. Regardless, these numbers are impressive and worth exploring and studying. Is Nibiru Planet 9? The planet supposedly home to the Anunnaki, Nibiru, has often been dismissed as a myth. However, NASA and the scientific community have recently discussed the possibility of a ninth planet, referred to as Planet 9. Could this planet be the home of the Anunnaki? Planet 9 has been proposed to explain the strange orbits of some Kuiper Belt objects, which cannot be explained by current solar system models. These unusual orbits may be influenced by the gravity of a large, distant planet. Calculations indicate that Planet 9 has a mass about 10 times that of Earth. Its orbital period will be much longer than Earth's. While Earth completes its orbit around the Sun in 365 days, Planet 9 would take between 10,000 and 20,000 years, following a highly elliptical path. If such a planet exists, it would be at a considerable distance from the Sun, much farther than the orbit of Neptune. However, Planet 9 has yet to be directly observed. Its existence has only been inferred through calculations and anomalies in the orbits of other celestial bodies. Are the Anunnaki or spaceships mentioned in the biblical texts? Viewing biblical texts as records of extraterrestrial encounters is a recent theory that has generated much controversy. According to this interpretation, some biblical narratives describe interactions with extraterrestrial beings or spacecraft, which ancient civilizations considered gods. One remarkable example comes from the book of the Hebrew prophet Ezekiel. The vision begins when Ezekiel, at the river Kabar, encounters a series of celestial phenomena. It describes 4 living creatures, each with 4 faces, a human, a lion, a bull, and an eagle, and 4 wings. In Ezekiel 1 verse 15 he says, I looked at the living creatures, and behold, a wheel on the ground beside every creature with its 4 faces. Beside them, he notes something even more astonishing, wheels within wheels, moving in all directions without turning. Ezekiel also describes the sound of the wings of the living creatures as the roar of a great army. Above the creatures and the wheels, he mentions what looks like a platform, upon which is a luminous throne upon which sits a radiant figure. Proponents of ancient astronaut theories suggest that these descriptions are primitive interpretations of spacecraft or UFOs. In a traditional biblical context, this vision is a spiritual depiction of God's glory. The account of the abduction of Enoch, described in Genesis 5 verse 24, is another mysterious passage in the Bible. The book states Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Although it occupies only one line in the Bible, it has sparked centuries of speculation about what actually happened at this event. Enoch, a descendant of Adam through Seth, is one of the few biblical figures who never experienced death. Unlike the other patriarchs, whose deaths are explicitly mentioned, the text simply states that Enoch disappeared because God took him. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, this abduction is understood as a divine act, demonstrating Enoch's exceptional purity and devotion to God. In modern speculative interpretations, the phrase God took him is believed to refer to a technological civilization that interacted with humans in ancient times. The dramatic story of the prophet Elijah being taken to heaven is described in the 2nd book of Kings. Elijah was walking with his disciple Elisha when suddenly the heavens opened and a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared. The book of Kings says, And while they were still walking and talking, behold, a chariot of fire appeared, and horses of fire separated the 2 of them. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. In religious interpretations, the chariot of fire symbolizes the glory of God. However, modern researchers suggest that these could have been UFOs or spacecraft, observed by the ancients who lacked the vocabulary to describe them. The star that guided the Magi to Jesus' birthplace is another enduring Christmas mystery. The wise men from the east saw in this star a sign compelling them to seek out the newborn King of the Jews. It is described as preceding them and stopping over the place where the child was. Matthew 2 verse 9 states, The star which they saw in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. This description has led to speculation that the star exhibited controlled movement, as if directed by an intelligence. This idea, although controversial, suggests that advanced beings may have influenced major events in human history. The passage of the pillar of cloud and fire in the book of Exodus is central to the Israelites' journey to the Promised Land. It is depicted as a guide accompanying them, appearing as a pillar of smoke by day and a pillar of fire by night. The biblical text in Exodus 13 verses 21 to 22 states, The Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them on the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light. This column would have been an awe-inspiring sight, a towering vertical structure visible in the barren desert landscape. From a religious perspective, the pillar of cloud and fire is seen as a miraculous act of God, symbolizing his ever-present presence with the Israelites. More recently, it has been suggested that the Israelites may have witnessed some form of spacecraft or aerial technology that the ancients could not comprehend. In Revelation 4 verse 1, the Apostle John describes a series of astonishing visions that seem to transcend human understanding. One of these images is an open door in heaven. A trumpet-like voice calls to John, Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after these things. John is taken through this door, and what he witnesses is extraordinary. The first thing he describes is a throne with a person sitting on it, surrounded by a radiant glow. The scene becomes even more mysterious when he mentions lightning, voices, and thunder emanating from the throne. In front of the throne is a sea of glass, adding an almost surreal quality to the vision. Around it, John sees 24 small thrones and 24 elders sitting on them, dressed in white robes and holding crowns of gold. In addition, he describes 4 living creatures around the throne, covered with eyes, and their faces resembling a lion, a calf, a man, and an eagle. From a traditional theological perspective, John's visions are viewed as direct revelations of heaven, where he is shown the throne of God. In modern interpretations, the open door in heaven is viewed as a portal, perhaps a form of interdimensional transport or even the entrance to a spaceship. The throne, surrounded by lightning and thunder, could represent advanced technology beyond ancient understanding, perhaps created by a machine or a ship. The 4-eye-covered, multi-winged creatures can be interpreted as non-human entities, drones, or machines. Some have viewed the arrangement of 24 elders on thrones as a hierarchical structure in an advanced society, or even as a kind of galactic council. There is no denying that these are bold theories, though they do not detract from the profound and astonishing nature of these biblical passages. Lost Anunnaki technology? One of the most intriguing theories suggests that the Anunnaki utilized free energy, an unlimited energy source available anywhere on the planet. It is suggested that they used this energy to power their machines, spacecraft, and massive structures. Proponents of this idea point to the Step Pyramid of Djoser in Egypt and other megalithic structures around the world as possible energy sources. The assumption is that the Anunnaki shared this knowledge with humans, but over time it was lost. Another related speculation is the alleged ability of the Anunnaki to teleport or use interdimensional portals. Some interpretations suggest that the Anunnaki traveled from Nibiru in advanced spacecraft capable of covering vast distances in a short time. Others believe that the Anunnaki created interdimensional portals for instantaneous travel. These portals may also have been used to navigate parallel universes or realms invisible to humanity. Such technology could explain ancient myths about gates to the underworld found in various cultures. In Mesopotamian mythology, Irkalla, or the underworld, is a subterranean realm ruled by the goddess Ereshkigal. To enter this realm, the dead had to pass through 7 gates, a system of portals that connected the world of the living to another plane of existence. In ancient Rome and Greece, the belief in portals to the underworld, called plutonium, referred to physical entrances to the realms of the dead. In Mayan mythology, Xibalba is the underworld, accessible through subterranean caves in the jungle. Some theorists suggest that these portals may have been ancient sites of dimensional portals manipulated by the Anunnaki. The ancient Egyptians also believed in an underworld called the Duat, accessible through hidden doors. To reach the afterlife, deceased pharaohs had to pass through 12 gates, each guarded by gods and guardians. Another technology attributed to the Anunnaki is the manipulation of time. This ability may have enabled them to accomplish feats such as the construction of massive structures in remarkably short periods. Sumerian and Babylonian architecture are also seen as evidence of the Anunnaki's technological influence on the daily lives of the ancient inhabitants of Mesopotamia. Although not as massive as the pyramids of Giza, ziggurats were impressive structures that required advanced engineering and materials. Some have interpreted their step design as intended to allow spacecraft to land. Some ziggurats reached great heights for their time, making them visible from great distances across the Mesopotamian plains. For this reason, some theorists suggest they served as visual markers for spacecraft, as landing beacons. If the Anunnaki possessed advanced technology, the question remains, what happened to them? One theory suggests that upon returning to Nibiru, the knowledge the Anunnaki passed on to humanity gradually faded away. Over time, humanity lost the ability to understand these tools and technologies, turning them into myths and legends. The loss of technological knowledge is unheard of in history. Other ancient civilizations developed technologies that were later forgotten, such as Greek fire, Damascus steel, the Antikythera mechanism, or Roman concrete. We realize that the possibilities discussed in this chapter may be difficult to believe, but it is our responsibility to share them so that everyone can form their own opinion. Could there be archaeological remains of the Anunnaki in Antarctica? Antarctica remains one of the least explored places on Earth. Its official discovery occurred in the early 1820s. However, a 1531 map created by Orens Feeney, a mathematician and cartographer, appears to depict Antarctica, with South Africa on the left and South America below. Similarly, the 16th century Pyrie Reis map also shows a landmass to the south. Did Orens Feeney or Pyrie Reis have knowledge of Antarctica's geography? According to historians, they had no way of knowing much more about the continent. At the time, it was common to invent islands or geographical details. Specifically, these maps appear to be based on the era's belief in a southern continent to balance the northern lands. On the other hand, was Antarctica ice-free long enough to harbor archaeological artifacts? During Meltwater Pulse 1b, about 15,000 years ago, fragments from a comet impact or increased solar activity likely caused global temperatures to rise. However, this climate change primarily affected the ice sheets in the northern hemisphere and was not severe enough to melt the massive Antarctic ice sheet. So, has Antarctica been ice-free throughout Earth's history? Yes, but these events occurred tens to hundreds of millions of years ago, long before humans appeared. The transition to glacial conditions in Antarctica began about 34 million years ago, at the end of the Eocene and the beginning of the Oligocene. Ice accumulated, and by the end of the Oligocene and into the Miocene 5 to 10 million years ago, the continent was covered in a thick ice sheet, much like it is today. About 100 million years ago, Antarctica was part of Gondwana, a supercontinent with a warmer climate and abundant biodiversity. In fact, fossils of ferns, conifers, and other plant species have been discovered on the continent. Dinosaur remains have also been discovered in some areas. Thus, it's possible that fossils of other, previously unknown animals may be exceptionally well preserved. Low temperatures slow down organic decomposition, potentially preserving bone structures and, in some cases, even soft tissue. Due to its isolation and harsh conditions, much of Antarctica remains unexplored, leaving room for speculation. In other regions formerly covered by ice, such as parts of Europe and North America, archaeological remains have been uncovered. For example, in the European Alps, retreating glaciers have revealed important discoveries such as Otzi, the Copper Age mummy. Similarly, in North America, retreating glaciers have uncovered artifacts from local cultures that lived there before the last ice age. While no ruins are expected in Antarctica, melting ice could reveal fossils or geological formations that reshape our understanding of Earth's history. Regardless, fascination with the frozen continent is immense, and future explorations may yield surprising discoveries. In addition, numerous geological and magnetic anomalies have been discovered in Antarctica, sparking speculation about hidden structures beneath the ice. In the northern part of the continent, what appear to be parallel pyramids have been observed. However, the official explanation is that these formations are natural. In the southern part of Antarctica, cave-like formations are found. Some have interpreted these as possible entrances to settlements of hidden Earths, humanoid beings believed to have coexisted with humanity for thousands of years. Have aliens established a base in Antarctica? Could they have done so in the distant past? Is it possible that other advanced species, currently unknown to us, once inhabited Antarctica? Do aliens exist? Are they related to the Anunnaki? Although the hidden Earth theory may sound like science fiction, it is being seriously considered as an explanation for UFO sightings. This theory suggests that UFOs and their entities are not extraterrestrial, but rather a hidden civilization that has coexisted with humanity for thousands of years. It is hypothesized that these beings and their craft have always existed on Earth, residing in oceans, mountains, or underground. These species may have developed technologies far superior to those possessed by humans, enabling them to remain undetected while sharing the planet. Advocates of the hidden Earth hypothesis argue that ancient myths about gods or spirits stem from encounters with these beings. They point out that UFO sightings are not modern phenomena, but have historical roots. On the other hand, proponents of the Anunnaki extraterrestrial hypothesis assert that most of the Anunnaki have departed, but some remain on Earth. Could the aliens be the Anunnaki who remained? In some reports of beings associated with UFOs or similar phenomena, the hidden terrestrials are described as wearing tight or luminous suits. Some accounts depict them as larger than human, almost giant-like figures, consistent with Anunnaki interpretations. Are UFOs associated with the Anunnaki? UFOs have been known to perform maneuvers that would seem impossible for human aircraft. There have been accounts of vehicles the beings are of non-human origin. Some alleged witnesses claim that the spacecraft seen in secret bases were recovered from archaeological excavations. Perhaps what we see in the sky are the same ships belonging to beings who visited Earth in the past. Could the Anunnaki be observing or interacting with humanity today in a manner similar to their ancient counterparts? The answer is that there is no concrete evidence linking the Anunnaki to modern UFOs. While official reports acknowledge unidentified aerial phenomena, they do not attribute these events to extraterrestrial activity, let alone the Anunnaki. Anunnaki weapons. Advanced technology or tools of mass destruction. Throughout human history, stories of the weapons of the gods have been a major theme in myths and legends. If the Anunnaki possessed the technology to travel between planets, did they also use advanced weapons to establish their rule over humanity? Ancient Mesopotamian myths often refer to sacred artifacts used by the gods to exert their power. Some theorists argue that these weapons were advanced technologies capable of causing massive destruction, similar to modern nuclear weapons. Sumerian texts mention the concept of the eye, a set of divine powers possessed by the gods. Enki was the guardian of me, granting him authority over various aspects of the universe and humanity. However, it has been suggested that the meat symbol symbolizes advanced technological knowledge. It was likely one of the weapons of mass destruction used by Enlil in the battle for control of Earth. According to mythological accounts, Enlil wielded the evil wind, a fearsome weapon described as a destructive storm that swept away cities and unleashed chaos. Some compare this weapon to phenomena associated with a nuclear explosion or advanced climate control technology capable of causing catastrophes. An inscription mentioning Eye appears in the Sumerian poem Inanna's Descent into the Underworld. One fragment reads, "She gathered the divine powers and held them in her hand." Could this be a reference to some form of advanced technology? In the Epic of Gilgamesh, another passage reads, "The heavens roared, the earth trembled, then a deep silence fell and darkness fell. And lightning flashed, fire broke out, and wherever the fire burned, death rained down." Is this a description of a massive explosion? In the Enuma Elish, a Babylonian poem about the creation of the universe, another passage says, "Then the Lord lifted up lightning, his great weapon, and mounted the chariot." Could lightning be an energy-based weapon and the chariot an air vehicle? In the Mahabharata, an Indian mythological text over 2,300 years old, there are repeated references to missiles, weapons, energy, battles, gods, and wars. Passage 197 reads, "Then Arjuna invoked the Brahmastra, and in an instant, all darkness dissipated, a cold wind began to blow, and all directions of the sky became clear and bright." Could this describe a battle using a nuclear weapon or a directed energy weapon? In some ancient depictions of the gods, especially in Sumerian and Babylonian reliefs, figures are shown holding cylindrical objects. Could these objects be portable energy-based weapons or anti-gravity devices? One example that suggests the Anunnaki's use of weapons of mass destruction is the biblical account of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. The story describes fire and brimstone raining from the sky, reducing the cities to ash in a catastrophic event. Although this account falls within the Judeo-Christian religious tradition, some theorists suggest that the cities were obliterated by an extraterrestrial weapon. Zecharia Sitchin has pointed to ancient texts and geological studies of the Dead Sea area to suggest that there are signs of a major explosion. However, this claim remains controversial, with no conclusive evidence to support such an explosion. On which planet in the Milky Way could an intelligent civilization exist? Assuming that the Anunnaki or some other alien species originated from a planet in the Milky Way, we can speculate on possible locations. The Milky Way galaxy is estimated to contain between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. Most of these stars are believed to have at least one exoplanet. This means there are likely at least 100 billion exoplanets in the galaxy. Of these, between 6 billion and 40 billion are believed to be habitable. Although hundreds of exoplanets have been discovered, let's focus on a few with the greatest potential for life. KOA 4878.01, located 1,100 light-years away, could be the most Earth-like planet discovered so far, orbiting its star every 449 days. If confirmed, the likelihood of life on its surface is high. Teegarden b, located just 12 light-years away, lies within its star's habitable zone and has a size and temperature similar to Earth. Its habitability is rated as excellent, with an Earth-likeness index of 0.93. Proxima Centauri b is the closest known habitable planet to Earth, located just 4.23 light-years away. Its temperatures are believed to be suitable for liquid water, which could support chemical processes associated with life. TRAPPIST-1e is located 39 light-years away, orbiting an ultra-cool star and receiving energy levels similar to those on Earth. Its Earth-like size suggests a rocky composition, along with the possibility of an atmosphere and a solid surface. Kepler 452b, located 1,400 light-years away, is nicknamed Earth's older cousin. This means that evolutionary processes on Kepler 452b could have progressed further than those on Earth. The prophecy of the return of the Anunnaki. Some interpretations of the Sumerian tablets suggest that the Anunnaki may return, bringing irreversible changes to humanity. Their return could trigger a series of global events that would forever alter life on Earth. One possible outcome is the revelation of humanity's true origins. We must face the possibility that humans are not the product of natural evolution, but rather the result of genetic manipulation. This realization could trigger an existential crisis on a global scale, transforming our understanding of the universe. If they return, their intentions may include correcting humanity, especially if they believe we have not progressed as they expected. The startling possibility is that the return of the Anunnaki could mark the beginning of contact between humanity and galactic civilizations. The Anunnaki may not be the only extraterrestrial beings in the universe, but rather members of a network of advanced races. However, this is not the only prophecy about extraterrestrial intelligence visiting our planet. The Hopi Native American tribe has a rich tradition of myths and legends passed down through generations. One such story is the belief in the existence of astral beings, entities that descend from the heavens to interact with humans. Could these beings be the Anunnaki? One of the most intriguing Hopi myths is that of the Star Children, who are said to be direct descendants of these extraterrestrial beings. The star beings share their wisdom with humans and bore children with tribal women, resulting in offspring with exceptional abilities. These children are raised within Hopi society, but are returned to heaven by the star beings at the age of 6. However, some of these children remain on Earth, growing up among the Hopi tribe and taking on important roles within the tribe. The Hopi believe that these children have a vital purpose for the future of humanity, as they are charged with restoring balance to the world. Their mission also includes preparing Earth for the arrival of a celestial being who will mark the end of humanity's current cycle and the beginning of a new era. Similarly, the Dogon people, a tribe in Mali, have a fascinating belief in beings called the Nammos, who came from the Sirius star system in a spaceship. This tribe possesses advanced astronomical knowledge of Sirius, the brightest star visible from Earth. They possess astonishing knowledge of Sirius B, a white dwarf star, including its density and small size, details that align with scientific discoveries. The Dogon also mention a third body in the Sirius system, Sirius C, whose existence has been debated but not confirmed. The Nammos are described as hybrid beings, part human and part fish, resembling aquatic creatures. According to myth, they possessed great powers and were the ones who introduced the Dogon's first teachings on agriculture, astronomy, and religion. These beings are said to have lived among humans for some time, before returning to the cosmos. While the Dogon's knowledge is remarkable, the accuracy of their information has been questioned. Some researchers argue that the Dogon obtained this information through contact with European explorers or missionaries who were already aware of Sirius B. What do archaeology and mainstream science say? For the vast majority of scholars, the idea that the Anunnaki were extraterrestrials who came to Earth lacks evidence. No archaeological remains have been found indicating extraterrestrial technology or contact between ancient civilizations and beings from other planets. It is true that some ancient cultures describe their deities as celestial beings descending from the heavens, evoking the idea of visitors from another world. However, from an archaeological perspective, these narratives are viewed as symbolic representations of natural or cosmic forces. Ancient Sumerian texts describe the Anunnaki as gods who created humanity to work the land and extract resources. According to archaeology, these stories are intended to explain the origins of life and society, rather than being literal accounts of historical events. Thus, for most scholars, the Anunnaki extraterrestrial theory faces significant challenges. It is also argued that ancient myths are complex and that isolating specific elements from their cultural context is problematic. One widely discussed topic is the pyramids. According to mainstream archaeology, Egypt's pyramids do not require extraterrestrial intervention to explain them. The consensus is that the Egyptians had access to a large workforce and knowledge of local engineering and materials. It is believed that a large workforce of skilled workers, not slaves, built the pyramids. Evidence from workers' villages and tombs indicates that they were organized into teams and provided with food, shelter, and medical care. Limestone blocks were quarried locally, while the granite used in the interior chambers came from Aswan, about 500 miles or 800 kilometers away. Finds such as mirrorless diaries indicate that boats and canals were used to transport stones along the Nile to the construction site. Reliefs, such as those from the tomb of Jehudi-Hotep, depict sledges used to pull stones, possibly with water poured forward to reduce friction. One theory involves the use of straight, zigzag, or contoured ramps that allowed workers to move stones to higher levels. However, the precise methods of lifting and placing the massive stones, particularly at the upper levels, remain uncertain. While ongoing archaeological research continues to uncover new information, without conclusive evidence, the precise techniques employed by the ancient Egyptians will remain a historical mystery. This concludes our fascinating journey through the history of the Sumerians, the Anunnaki, and their intriguing alternative theories. Hypotheses such as hidden Earth beings, the Anunnaki as extraterrestrials, or UFOs in biblical texts remain speculative and lack support from conventional science. However, there may still be countless mysteries to unravel and much to learn. Exploring these theories encourages us to keep an open mind, challenge our assumptions, and feed our curiosity. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye and see you again in the next stories.